Hey everybody, it's Warwick here, and just on my live in 5 videos again. So welcome to you on a Sunday in February. Can you believe it's already like past the middle of February? Valentine's Day just happened. Amazing, right? So let's get on to it. So recently we've had somebody ask a question about transferring hives, and they they pretty much said that they'd taken an old hive and they decided they wanted to move it into a colony rather from an old box, wanted to move it into a new box, and did that. The old box had problems with ants, and so they just also wanted to make sure that the hive was good. It was a strong hive. It was looking great, and then they decided to move from the old box into the new hive, which had been invaded by ants and moths, and then wanted to move it into a new box away from all of that stuff. So they decided to do their transfer. From what I can gather, they did it at night, which is the better way of doing it. And they should have left it in the same place that they actually found the bees in or had their old box in. But here's a couple of questions if this happens to you that, why do bees leave or abscond after transferring into a new box? And here's the other thing. What can you do about it in order to prevent it from happening to you in future? Because this guy, unfortunately, has lost this really nice, strong colony now. So a few variables to consider, a few factors that we want to look out for is what is the size? What was the size of the old box, the colony that was in the old box? And is the new box, has it got enough space for the bees, the new bees? Right? Does it also have, if the old box had just a brood box, but it was packed, it was full, then the new box should have had the same amount of space, a brood box, but potentially you should have put a super on top of that as well, okay, to ensure that the bees had enough space to build on and not think that, hey, this is actually a good time for us to actually leave, so we might as well do it now because we've just been moved, transferred from one box to a new box. We get the idea, we're out of here, okay? So make sure that you've got the right amount of space for the bees. If they were full, and that mean by full I mean they got 9, 10 frames in the brood box, you needed to move them to a new box and put a super on top of it. Ideally, maybe even at first without an excluder in there. In fact, there's a little tip I'm going to give you towards the end of this where you could use a queen excluder as one of our tips. Also, another factor to consider is was the hive in the same position as it was the old hive, where the old box was in comparison to where the new box is. That's critical, facing the same direction, same height, same placement. Unless you're going to move the bees away up to 5 kilometers away, leave them there for a few days, a few nights, and then bring them back and put them where you want them. Third thing that you want to do is a question that I had for this customer or this student was, did you replace the frames back in the same order than you took them out or found them in the old box? So if you look at a brood box, you've got frames 1 on one side all the way through to 10 on the other side, or 1 to 10, however, wherever you start. You need to keep the frames in order that they were in the old box when you move them to a new box. Okay, otherwise the bees get like frazzled. It's kind of like if you were to move house or go away for the weekend, you come back after the weekend, and all of a sudden your spouse has moved your bedroom into the lounge, and the lounge into kitchen, and the kitchen into the garage, and all that sort of stuff. It's like, whoa, man, what the hell? What's going on here? So bear that in mind, okay? When you move colonies from one hive to another one, make sure that you keep the frames in order. Frame 1 must be in the same place in the new box. Frame 2 in the same place. Frame 3 in the same place, okay? They may have been upset already because he had ants invading and moths already invading in the old box, so they may have had the idea that they should move anyway, and then just having done this now, encourage them to do so. So what I would have done in future, right? I would have recommended, and I'm recommending to you now as well. If you have this task that you need to do, transferring a colony from an old dilapidated box, or even a box that you want to do maintenance on, i.e. you want to recoat it, repaint it, it needs nailing, the floor needs replacing, whatever the case may be, you need to move the hive, the colony frames and bees over into a new box, whether it's temporarily or not. These are some of the steps or tips I have for you. If you're moving them to a new box and you've left the floor unattached, okay, in other words, the floor is loose away from the brood, what you can do is you can place a queen excluder in between the two. So you've got the floor, a loose floor, it's not attached to the brood body. You place a queen excluder in between the floor and the brood body. That way, the queen, once you've transferred all the bees and the queen and the frames and everything over, the queen can't get out. Okay, she can't get through the queen excluder and out the hive if the hive decides they want to abscond. Right? Tip number one. Tip number two is you take the same concept, except that all you do is, if you don't have a loose floor, which it's unlikely you get one from us at Beware or from most of the manufacturers in South Africa, is instead of using a loose floor plus an entire queen excluder, what you can do is that you can take a queen excluder, and ideally in this case you can use a plastic one rather than a metal one or aluminium one, is that you're going to take a plastic queen excluder or a metal one and you're going to cut them to size down into strips that you can easily place and nail into place in the entrance of the box, right at the entrance of the brood box. And what this does is it effectively also creates what we call a queen guard, an entrance queen guard. So these are pretty cool. You can use them for catch boxes as well. Once the swarm has moved in, you can move them for bee removals as well. Once you've done a bee removal and you're sure that you've got the queen, but you can also use them in this case for this particular question that this beekeeper had, which is he's moving his old hive into a new hive, and the queen absconded with a colony. Obviously, the whole entire hive left. Now, obviously, it's not something you should put into place forever and a day. It's something you should keep in there for maybe 2 weeks, just so that the queen then and the bees will get more comfortable with living in their new space, and she starts laying again, and they've got new babies to look after, and so on and so forth. They feel comfortable, they feel at home. Chances are after about 2 weeks you can take the queen excluder off, or in this case, in the majority of cases, you can take the queen guard off. All right, so those are our tips, and make sure that you've got the hive in the same place as you had them in before, and obviously treat the area. Use what's it called, diatomaceous earth for the ants, or nip it if you're that way inclined to manage ants. In this case, this guy had ants and he had moths. So in order to also treat the old box, you should flame it with a blowtorch, or boil it, or dip it into really hot beeswax or oil, and that way it'll clean away any eggs that are left behind in that old box. All right, guys, thanks very much for joining me today. If you like this, comment. If you have any more questions, post them in the live video space afterwards. Hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great Sunday and all the best for the week ahead. And best beekeeping. Well, ciao.